Ben Stark here recording an M20 Draft video. This is one of the best core sets I've ever played. It's been a super fun format. Let's get into it. So Sorin is tricky. If your deck was all vampires, this would be an unbelievable, unbeatable, incredible bomb. But there aren't that many vampires in this format. There's the 2-mana 2/2 lifelink, there's a 3-mana 3/2, the 5-mana 4/4, whenever you gain life, the opponent loses life. But there really aren't that many, so a lot of times you end up with 2, 3, 4 vampires in your deck, and then if they kill the one vampire you drew or you just didn't draw it, Sorin doesn't do a whole lot. The plus just gives Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. That's not very strong. If you're pumping a creature every turn with that plus, or if you're sacking creatures to turn them into lightning helixes, that's really strong. So you can take Sorin and then draft every vampire really aggressively, but be aware, sometimes it's not going to get there. Disfigure is a really strong removal spell. I think it's considerably better than Shock. The ability to shrink a 4/4, let's say, when it blocks an opposing 4/4, when it blocks your 4/4, and then kill big creatures with it, is much more valuable than going into the opponent's face. Additionally, 1 mana for 2 damage, like Shock, is just effective and efficient. Noxious Grasp is a really powerful color hoser. Destroy any creature that's green or white. Gain a life doesn't matter a ton, it's just 1 life. But for 2 mana at instant speed, it's a powerful sideboard card. And sometimes I'll main deck the color hosers like it if I have a couple of ways to loot or rummage them away when they're dead. Remember, unlike things that only hit 1 color of cards, this cycle of color hosers hits 2. If draft decks are going to be 2 colors, that means you got about a 70% chance of it being on. So I don't want to main deck a card that has a 30% chance of being dead, unless I have some ways to loot it away. But if you do, it's going to be on 70% or so of the time. Cloudkin Seer is one of the best commons. It looks somewhat innocuous, but 3 mana for a 2-power flyer is a relevant card. It's easy to cast, and then it draws a card and replaces itself. Chandra's Outrage is also one of the best commons. It's just good, solid removal. It's an instant. 4 can take out almost anything, and you get 2 damage to the opponent. So this is a pick between Sorin, Disfigure, Seer, and Outrage, I think. And I honestly believe all 4 are pretty close. I think that Sorin is powerful enough that if you start with it and prioritize Vamps, that it's the right pick over Disfigure, Cloudkin Seer, and Chandra's Outrage. But if this were later in the draft, I was faced with the same pick, and I only had like 1 vampire, let's say, at the start of pack 3, I would not take Sorin here. Pick 2. So the best card in this pack is Empyrean Eagle. That card is amazing in blue-white flyers. It's basically a 3-mana 2/3 flyer, Glorious Anthem. And 3-mana 2/3 flyer is a good rate, and Glorious Anthem is just incredible, pumping all your creatures and limited for the rest of the game, assuming almost all your creatures fly, which blue and white has a ton of flyers in this format, more than ever. Ember Hauler is fine. You'll always play it in a heavy red deck, but the casting cost makes it tough to cast on turn 2, which is not what you're looking for out of your 2 drops. Passivism is always good, solid removal, one of the better commons. I like On Summon. Even though some of the blue decks are controlling, they have so much card drawing and card advantage that sometimes you're happy to On Summon just to set the opponent back. And of course, it's so cheap that you can use it in response to a pump spell or in response to your opponent's fight spell like Rabid Bite, and then the creature won't be there to deal its damage. Rabid Bite is also good, solid removal. I think I actually like Leafkin Druid better than Rabid Bite for best green common, but Rabid Bite's still quite a good card, and certainly they're close. So this is a pick between Pacifism, Empyrean Eagle, On Summon, and Rabid Bite. I think personally Empyrean Eagle is just too much better than the rest of the cards to not take it. I know that we're not going to be able to play Empyrean Eagle and Sorin in the same deck most likely, but they're both power cards. The rest of the cards are not that important, and I'm prepared to drop one or the other one and have more options. It's only pick 2 of the draft. Okay, Loyal Pegasus is a card that I think is better than it looks. You're not usually looking to attack or block alone that much in Limited, and anytime you can do anything turn 1 that's productive, that's something that I value really highly, because turn 1 is often spent playing a land, passing, and not adding to the board. Wave Crasher is another good card, probably better than it looks. It's not like if you draw this when you're empty-handed and don't have any creatures out, you can't do anything. You don't have to sack it if you can't return a creature. So if you do play it and you have a creature out, you have to return one. But if you don't, then you just don't, and you get a 4-mana 4/4. And a lot of times returning a creature is going to be upside. They might pacify your creature or sleep paralysis your creature, and you might free it up. Additionally, you might just have a creature with a comes into play ability. And even if you don't have any of that, in the late game, it can untap a blocker, attack, deal some damage, play it, bounce the creature, and replay that same creature untapped. Really nice card. Season of Growth is a card that is also better than it looks, I think. So the thing about scrying is most of the game, once you have enough lands, you're scrying any land you see to the bottom. Most of your deck is creatures and lands in Limited. So that means you're going to be drawing a lot of creatures because you're using the scry 1 anytime you play a creature to put your lands on the bottom. But those creatures you're drawing mean you get to scry again. So this can really allow you to chain that advantage and then go on to win the game through basically never or almost never drawing lands in the late game. Also, Rabid Bite, the fight spell, targets your creature and the opponent's, so that's an easy way to draw a card right there. And there's a few other relatively efficient pump spells and things like that. Metropolis Sprite is a good 2-drop. It's effectively a 2-power flyer if you can sink a blue into it, which means it'll be a relevant card. It's cheap and easy to cast. And good relevant 2s aren't that easy to come by in this format. It's a pretty slow format. You do not want to play stuff like 2-mana 2/2 no ability. So stuff like good playable 2s like Metropolis Sprite are things that you want to take pretty aggressively. As far as the rest of the pack, Silverback Shaman is the only other common that I like a lot. I mean, Thicket Crasher's totally fine, but I find it to be generally unexciting. I'll always play it in an Elementals deck. I mean, I'll almost always play it in virtually any green deck, but I would never take it over Silverback Shaman unless I had a heavy Elementals deck. So this is a pick between Season of Growth, Silverback Shaman, which, by the way, that's a common, huh? 5-mana, 5/4 trample, and you get a card when it dies. Feels more like an uncommon. It's really, really powerful. So Season of Growth, Silverback Shaman, Crasher Sprite, Pegasus. This is a pretty weak pack. I think, given we have the Empyrean Eagle and how strong that card is, and none of these cards are really calling out to us, I think we should take Loyal Pegasus here. Black-White is a good way to go if you go Vampires, potentially. Blue-White Flyers wants Loyal Pegasus because you're always going to have other Flyers to attack with. So I'm not happy about third picking a Loyal Pegasus, but I do think the card is better than it looks and a solid playable. All right, pick 4 here. Meteor Golem, probably the best it's ever been. This is a super slow format, and there's lots of ways to bounce your creatures and recur them. That said, a Blue-White Flyers deck is not a deck that's super looking for a Meteor Golem. That's a deck that's looking to play an aggressive game, win in the air, bounce opponents' creatures, and end games quickly. Sleep Paralysis is fine removal. It taps the creature when it comes into play, so it's basically 4 mana, kill a creature. The opponent has the ability to free it up. That's a little annoying. The more aggressive your deck is, the better a card like Sleep Paralysis or Pacifism is. The reason for that is it's going to stop the blocker the turn you play it, and if you end the game quickly, your opponent likely won't have time to find that enchantment kill or that bounce spell or whatever. Whereas if you're looking to play a really long game, sooner or later they're probably going to free up that creature. So I like Sleep Paralysis a lot in decks like Blue-White Flyers. Leafkin Druid is, in my opinion, the best green common. Maybe just behind or just tied with Rabid Bite. I think they're pretty close. This is a really powerful ramper. It's not just a 2-mana card that taps to add a green. An 0/3, as opposed to like an 0/1 or 0/2, can block. Most of the 2-drop creatures are going to have 2 power, so this is an effective blocker the turn you play it. And the mana ability is going to overperform, because in your land-light hands, the hands where you only draw 3 to 4 mana by turn 6 or 7, you're very likely to have 4 creatures out, and that's when you want it to add 2 mana, because you have a bunch of spells in hand, a bunch of things to do with that mana. In your land-heavy hands, you don't really care that it can't add 2 mana, because you drew 6, 7 lands anyway. So that's a card I really like also. The rest of the commons in this pack are not really stuff I would consider. Blade Brand's an okay trick. Reckless Airstrike's an okay sideboard card. But basically, Meteor Golem's probably the best card in the pack. Season of Growth and Leafkin Druid are both nice cards, and they're pretty close. But Sleep Paralysis to go with the Empyrean Eagle and the Loyal Pegasus just makes too much sense. Leafkin Druid is probably a little better than Sleep Paralysis, but not enough to take it when we haven't even looked at green yet. So now we see Lavakin Brawler's a nice elemental, but of course we haven't even looked at red yet. There's not really any blue or white cards that I super want. Battalion Foot Soldier can be good if you end up with like a grindy black-white deck, but that's not really the direction we're trying to go at the moment. Blade Brand's a decent trick, especially if your deck is filled with little creatures. Again, a grindy black-white deck. But you've got to get like 3 or more battalions for it to be good. And we want to prioritize vampires. Also, we're looking nice as far as 3 of our 4 cards for blue-white flyers at the moment. The problem is just there's nothing for us in this pack. So if we did deviate, where would we go? Could probably be a black-white, like a vampires deck potentially, which would make me want Blade Brand or Foot Soldier. We could still certainly go black-blue just as easily, which would make me take the Blade Brand over the Foot Soldier. We have 1 good blue card. It's probably a little better than our white card. 1 white card, a white, blue, gold card, and a black card. So I guess Lavakin Brawler's probably off the table. And the right pick here is probably Blade Brand. Because if we go white-blue flyers, we're not going to want Battalion Foot Soldier. But if we go white-black, we probably will want Blade Brand. So there's one of the common vampires, the 3-mana 3/2. As far as blue-white flyer stuff, though, Angelic Gift is really nice. It's super cheap, and it can turn your 1 non-flyer into a flyer. And Inspired Charge is really good in that deck. Blue-white flyers is a deck full of small creatures, and you're looking to race and win in the air, not trade things off. So that's a deck where Inspired Charge really overperforms. That said, we haven't really seen much in the way of blue-white flyers. We're now getting a vampire to go with Sorin and Blade Brand, so I think we're going to deviate and go back in that direction and take Barony Vampire here. So now there's no black cards in the pack, but there is Loyal Pegasus. We're definitely going to play either black-blue or black-white, I think. We've got a bunch of black cards now. So I think Loyal Pegasus here will be good if we go black-white. Small creatures, you can attack in the air. If somehow we make our way back to white-blue flyers, it'll be excellent. But I don't even know what else I would consider out of this pack. Portal can be okay if you have a grindy deck with a bunch of creatures that comes into play abilities. I don't really like the card. I think it's kind of slow and situational. Inspiring Captain, again, okay if you're a go-wide deck. Moment of Heroism is a fine combat trick, but I think Loyal Pegasus is just the best card in this pack and a clear pick for us. And I like Skeleton a lot. It works well with Blade Brand. I'm disappointed to see a card as good as Reduced to Ashes, but red is off the table. So I'm going to take Skeleton here. Sadly, it's not a vampire, but it works with Bone Splinters and Blade Brand. And Skeleton is one of those cards that I think is a lot better than it looks. Imagine your opponent has had a 2/1 and a 5/5. You block the 5/5, bounce it back to your hand. If they attack with both, you trade with the 2/1, bounce it back to your hand, and then it goes on to stop the 5/5. It's mana intensive, but this format is slow and grindy, and Sanitarium Skeleton is a big overperformer. You can get it for free by milling it with the Vulture. You can also sack it to Bone Splinters. You can also use it with Blade Brand to kill any creature and then just buy it back. I think it's just a really nice common. So Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, the more aggressive you are, the better it is, because you have to be basically attacking and then you can trade up with it. It's early in the draft. I think I want the Undead Servant. This is a card that if you do have those vultures to mill yourself and you have 3 or more of this card, it's pretty easy to end up with a really effective card. You only need 1 Undead Servant in your graveyard when you play it for it to be a really good card. 4 mana for a 3/2 and a 2/2 is really nice. And if you ever get 2/2/2s, forget about it. You don't play this card with less than 3. But if you get 3 or more and you have ways to mill yourself and things like that, it can become really strong. It's early in the draft. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. Now I'll grab a Cutthroat, still a playable for a black-white creature deck. So even though I think we're a lot more likely to play black-white than black-blue, we're not committed to white. We have 2 Loyal Pegasus. So I'm going to take Metropolis Sprite here to go with Sleep Paralysis. That gives us the option of black-white or black-blue, and we're pretty much only committed to black at this point. These cards just don't matter. Let's see what we're going to open. So sadly, we opened a really good green rare, Night Pack Ambusher. Now granted, we're only committed to black, so we could switch to black-green. It's not unthinkable. But there's a really nice black-blue gold card in this pack. Tomebound Lich. This card is great. It loots right when it comes into play. So if you have a skeleton in your hand, you can discard it. If we end up getting to do the Undead Servants thing, you can discard an Undead Servant to this when you play it. Then next turn, cast an Undead Servant. That's amazing. If you discard Skeleton, then you can buy it back. You basically got a free one. If not, you probably have excess lands to discard, or it can help you dig the land for if you need that. Plus, Death Touch and Lifelink means When it attacks, if they want to ignore it, you're gaining a life and looting. If they block it, it's got Death Touch, and it'll take out any size creature. So Night Pack Ambusher is better than Lich, but given we have 2 blue cards and 0 green cards, I think this is a clear pick out of this pack. Flame Sweep is also first pickable. The fact that this card does not hit your flyers is excellent. You can put out 1 flyer or 2, then that you let them attack, you block your 2/2 that would die to Flame Sweep on their 4/4, then end of their turn, you Flame Sweep, kill all of their stuff, not your flyer, not your 1 creature with 3 toughness because you didn't block with it because you knew you were going to Flame Sweep. This card has a lot of potential to get blowouts and is very first pickable. The commons in this pack are super unexciting, and Lich is a clear pick for our black-blue deck, in my opinion. Okay, and I think now that we're honing in on an archetype, black-blue here, this is a pretty clear pick in Disfigure. They made it an uncommon because it's just excellent removal. It trades up, and it trades up mana when it kills 2 and 3 drop creatures with 2 toughness, and it can allow, like I said, your 4/4 or 5/5 to kill the opponents in combat. Just a great all-around, flexible, cheap removal spell. Now we've got a pack here for black-blue. I would like to take this whole pack. We already have a skeleton plus some cheap creatures to sack, so Bone Splinters is good removal for us. Warden of Evosile can be really good. We don't have a lot of expensive flyers at the moment. We do have Metropolis Sprite we can lessen by 1, but that comes out a turn before it anyway. That said, it's not like it's an enchantment. It's a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. That's already an acceptable rate. So that's a card with a lot of upside, but we're not really using it. Now, what I haven't talked about yet is the card I'm actually going to take. One of my favorite commons in the set, Audacious Thief. I think this might be the second best black common behind Murder. And yes, I know Bone Splinters is common, Skeleton is common, Vulture is common, Soul Salvage is common. Black is really good in this set. I think blue and black are the 2 best colors. But Audacious Thief is so threatening. So you get to attack and get the card right away, right? So if they block, you still got the card. Then maybe you finish off their creature with a Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. Or you Blade Brand your Audacious Thief and take out whatever bigger creature blocked it. Or you kill their only blocker pre-combat, attack and draw a card, and then it can do it again next turn. This is a slow, grindy format, and this is consistent card advantage. I feel like you win the game with this card like 25% of the time because it just gets to keep attacking, and that's ridiculous for a 3-mana 2/2. This card is very, very, very good. Not broken, not great, but it's a very nice 3-drop common. I think it might be the second best black common behind only Murder. All right, now we have an interesting pack as far as black-blue goes. I don't really love the Necromancer. It's definitely playable. I do like 1 copy of Soul Salvage in my deck. But I think Aether Gust is a really powerful sideboard card, and we already have 1 Lich to loot it away, so we're not even far from main decking it. So I think it's good to pick up powerful sideboard cards when you can. This is traditional best 2 out of 3, so we will get to sideboard. And I don't think we're missing out on much by Soul Salvage, which I think is an okay card for this deck. I definitely would play the first copy, but it's not that strong. Renowned Weaponsmith is a really interesting card because it's a 2-mana 1/3, so it's not far from playable on its own, but if you're not searching out Heartpiercer Bow or Vial of Dragonfire, or at least tapping it for some powerful, expensive artifact, it's not a good card. You would never put a 2-mana 1/3 no ability in your deck. Those artifacts that you can search out aren't very good. I'm not saying if you had like 2 Weaponsmiths, you wouldn't play them and search them out and be happy about it, but do you really want to spend picks assembling that mediocre combo? When you look at a pack like this, there's plenty of nice playables. Boreal Elemental's a very solid 5-drop. 3/4 flyers a fine rate, and the ability is a little better than it looks. If your opponent has open removal mana, you can often play this, and then they can't cast their Murder or Chandra's Outrage. They have to untap, not spend their 3 or 4 mana they left up, and then do it on their turn for a very expensive price. Blade Brand, like I said, is a good trick, but we already have 2, so I'm not really looking at that here. Evolving Wilds is always nice as a mana fixer, but we shouldn't need it. We're not looking to splash white. We don't have enough flyers that we're interested in splashing Empyrean Eagle. And we're a 2-color deck, so while I would play Evolving Wilds, it's not exciting. So, and Frostlinks, I would also always play. It works well with the Thief, but we're not a tempo deck. It's not a particularly exciting card in this deck. Our curve is nice and low. We don't actually even have a single card that costs 5 or more mana. So now's a good opportunity to pick up a good 5-drop common flyer for our deck. So this pack is the opposite. I don't really want any of these cards. I don't think we're going to use any of them. I guess the Cutthroat in the right matchup has the most potential. I think Duress is really bad. Unless your opponent's deck is like all spells or counters that are going to be sitting in their hand, I never want to Duress somebody because it feels good when you hit that removal spell, but you still just traded 1 for 1. And when you whiff with Duress, that downside is so much more than the upside of when you hit. So unless my opponent's got a bunch of counters and I can tell when they have spells in hand and I'm almost never going to whiff when I cast Duress, or they just have a deck with all spells basically, I'm not boarding in Duress. I think it's a big mistake to board in Duress just to hit a couple good removal spells. Octoprophet is totally fine. It's not exciting, but Scry 2 is nothing to sleep on. By the time you have 4 mana, you often won't need any more. You'll bottom 1 land with this. 4 mana 3/3 draw a card would be an excellent card. Vengeful Warchief's another fine 5-drop. If your opponent's not attacking you, they're probably not winning. So this is a 5 mana 4/4 that grows and grows. Nothing exciting, but it almost auto-include. What we haven't done is gotten any vampires since this Barony Vampire. And like I said, there aren't a lot. We are looking for them, hoping we can find them, and we'll take them quite aggressively. Now's an opportunity to pick up that 1 Soul Salvage I really like to have. I don't like to have a lot of Soul Salvages, because then you get some awkward draws, but the first copy is pretty strong in any black deck. Wow, I wish we could have went Blue-White Flyers with double Empyrean Eagle, but we really didn't see that. This pack is so bad for us. Drakuseth's amazing, but we're not red, and it's triple red, and we're not looking to switch out of black or blue. So as far as the black and blue cards, there's an Unsummon, which is a solid playable. Barony Vampire, which because of Sorin is a solid playable. And Undead Servant, which would be our second. And we don't have any of the Vultures that mill 4 cards yet. We do have a Lich and some Scry. So if we could get 3 of those, I would happily include them. But I don't want to be taking it here. I really don't want to be taking any of these cards here. First picking Barony Vampire or Unsummon or Undead Servant or Convolute out of this pack is pretty embarrassing. But we've got Sorin. I want to make it work. Unsummon's fine, but we certainly don't need it. So I'm going to just grab this Vampire. We'll probably table the Undead Servant, so we'll look for if there's another Undead Servant later. And I want to lock up the Vampires with my Sorin. Okay, and so here's another Undead Servant. So we don't know whether they're going to come back or not, but if they do, we have the potential to end up with 3. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take Murder. Murder's the best common in the set. It's super efficient removal. Kills any size creature at instant speed for just 3 mana, and we have a black-heavy deck where our land base is probably going to end up being 9/8, 9 swamps. So Murder's a clear pick here, but now we know there's 2 Undead Servants. They have the potential to table. So now we're seeing an interesting spot. Blood for Bones is really powerful. You can sack a creature that's pacified or sleep paralysis. Also, you can sack your worst creature. You don't have to get back the creature you sacrificed. So you can end up returning 2 good creatures from your graveyard, and you can put the more expensive one right into play. That said, we don't have many 2-drops. We have Disfigure, Skeleton, and Sprite, and that's it. Blood Burglar's a vampire. If you go turn 2 Blood Burglar, turn 3 Sorin, pump it, it's now a 3/3 lifelink Death Touch that's attacking on turn 3. That's incredible. There's not that many vampires in this set. We need 2-drops, and it's pack 3. So I think Blood for Bones is a lot better than Blood Burglar, but I think Blood Burglar is the right pick, given we are lacking 2-drops and we have Sorin. So Blood Burglar is a clear pick for me here, but Blood for Bones is a much more powerful card and a card that I would normally take over it. As far as the rest of this pack, Blood-Soaked Altar's not very good. It's just too much mana, too expensive, too much of a commitment to turn your creatures into 5/5s. I'll play it sometimes in like a white-black deck with a bunch of small creatures and life gain and stuff, but even then I think it's kind of mediocre. It's not really a card I'm a big fan of. It can be a powerful sideboard card in some matchups, but I don't like starting the card. Skeletons are always good. I would gladly play a second in this deck, but I wouldn't take it over Blood Burglar. And that's about it. Okay, this pick is easy. Murder, we're getting hooked up. Black was clearly wide open. It took a while, but we found the open color, so I'm pretty happy about this. We're getting rewarded pretty heavily with 2 murders passed to us in this pack. Sleep Paralysis is not even remotely close to Murder. It's a fine card. We already have 2 Blade Brands in the deck. I think even a 3rd in the sideboard here, which could end up going in, but 2 is a good number of that card. You're not really looking to ever have 2 Blade Brands in your hand, but it's a fine trick. So here, Clear Murder. Overgrowth Elemental's a really powerful card for the Elementals deck, but we're not green and we're not drafting Elementals. Now there's Gorging Vulture. That's a card I like a lot. It can fill your graveyard for Soul Salvage. Also, it can find your Sanitarium Skeleton. If you do end up doing the not Unholy Indenture, that's an unplayable black enchantment, the Undead Servant thing, then it can put one in your yard, and then you can cast one on turn 4. Just all around a very solid creature. Plus, it's a 3-mana 2/2 that gains a life or 2 when it comes into play. A 3-mana 2/2 flyer that gains you 2 is a perfectly reasonable card on its own, even without synergy. So this is a card I'm a pretty big fan of. We're going to take it here. There's nothing really competing with it. And hopefully we'll end up tabling those 2 Undead Servants, and we'll get to do the Undead Servant zombie thing. Here, Winged Words. We have a few flyers, so we can pay 2 for this sometimes, but even if you pay 3 for it, it's a slow, grindy format. We already have an Anticipate, not that I'm planning on running it. Mind Rot's an okay card, but we don't need it. Winged Words is just a clear pick. It's the only card from this pack that's going to make our main deck. So there's a second Undead Servant, and it's neither of the 2 that we had passed earlier in this pack. That was first and second picks, so we definitely have a chance to table them. Will we? I have no idea. But we're not taking over much. We're taking over second Soul Salvage, which is pretty medium. So here's where you pick up an Undead Servant and hope we table at least one, if not both of the other ones. If we get 4 of those in a deck with Vulture and Lich and just a grindy all-around deck like this, Blade Brand draws a card, Winged Words draws a card, Audacious Thief draws 2 cards, Audacious Thief draws cards. If we get 4 of these in this deck, they're going to be great. Our curve is nice and low. We can just cut Cutthroat and War Chief and play a bunch of Undead Servants, and I think the deck will be really good if we get there. Don't know if we're going to get there or not. If we do get there and play a bunch of those as 4-drops, we're not going to play Pattern Matcher. But if we don't, Pattern Matcher's good as long as you have doubles to search up. Do we? Let's go check. We have 2 Barony Vampires. Well, that's about it. We have a second Fathom Fleet Cutthroat if we want to play it. That said, we already have a 3rd Blade Brand in the board. We certainly don't need a 4th. So I'm going to grab the Matcher, but unless we pull down some doubles, I'm probably not going to play it. Okay, there's the first of the Undead Servants, so that gives us 3. And we're definitely taking it. There's no other blue or black cards in the pack. And let's hope we get another one the very next pick. And we did it. That gives us 4 Undead Servants. This is going to be fun. Anytime you draw multiple Servants, that card can be really strong. It's pretty easy to trade them off. Plus, we can discard them to Lich. We can mill them with Vulture. This is going to be fun. Listen, I'm not saying the deck is broken because we have 4 Undead Servants, because it's not. It's not that powerful of a thing. But it is sweet, and it is legitimately good. I'm not drafting here for memes or for fun. I'm playing 4 Undead Servants because we have a grindy deck with scry and card drawing. We're going to mill ourselves, and we're going to make multiple zombies here. Now that we are putting those in, we want to cut a mediocre 4 like Cutthroat because we don't want our curve to end up too high. Our curve is actually still nice and low. We don't have a lot of 2-drops, but most of our cards cost 3, not 4. And this is not a fast format. It's okay not to have a ton of 2-drops. That said, since these work in multiples, I probably want to play something like Anticipate because we're not going to do anything on turn 2 that often. And this can go and find either a Servant or like the Lich to then discard a Servant too. Think we're going to just get rid of the War Chief. It's a fine playable 5, but now that we're playing 4 4-drops here, we don't really want that. And let's take a look at what our worst 3 is. These vampires have to be played because of the Sorin. We can't cut anything from here except possibly Anticipate. We have so few 1s and 2s, and they're all quite good. So we could easily cut our worst 3, except our 3s are all pretty good. We can't cut a Servant. That doesn't make sense. So we could either cut Anticipate, we can cut Octo Prophet, we can cut a land potentially, but we really need 9 black at least with double murder and all these early black cards. With double Blade Brand, we could probably get away with 16 lands if we had a black-blue duel, but I don't know that I want to go to 7 islands, and I definitely don't want to go to 8 swamps. If I did play 16 lands, it would definitely be 9 swamps, 7 islands, but I don't really want to do that. I think I'll just cut the Prophet. We have ways to get rid of excess lands, at least a little bit. We have the Lich. Also, we can use our mana just fine. We have a Soul Salvage that recurs things. We have card drawing. So I think I'm just going to cut the Prophet here now that we have 4 other 4-drops I want to run and suit this up. Let's get to round 1. So these are pretty long, the traditional queues. They end when you get either 5 wins or 2 losses. I like my chances to get 5 wins. I think this deck's pretty good. I'd love to have like another Vulture. This hand's a little slow. That is one of the Achilles heels of this deck, but it's really grindy. And I also don't think there's that much aggro in this format, so hopefully we're not playing against a fast aggro deck with a good draw on the play. Healer's a card that generally tells you your opponent's probably on elementals. 1 mana 1/2 gain 3 without any synergies isn't playable, but if you've got elemental synergies, then this is a fine card to put into your deck. So Silverback Shaman is a 3 mana 3/2 that shuffles a graveyard back into its owner's library. So that can allow you to shuffle all your stuff back in if you're getting late in the game, or shuffle the opponents in if you think they're going to use their graveyard. Pretty annoying for our Undead Servants. Here on turn 3, it's not really doing anything, but it's a pretty solid 3-drop given the ability to shuffle in either player's graveyard. We already have 2 islands and we're heavier black than blue, so we'll take a swamp. Really, we have pretty much enough lands already, so I was hoping to get spells, but there's nothing wrong with taking 1 more land there, especially putting 2 on the bottom. Sadly, we don't have any 3-drops, though. So again, it's a slow hand, but these come into play untapped. Hopefully we can play the first one, then they'll either kill it or we'll trade it off, and then we can play the second one, get a 2/2 zombie, get 2 creatures, and start getting ahead. Remember, this deck's a little slow, but we have a lot of 3-drops. We're really hoping to start by turn 3 on the draw at the latest, not on turn 4. So for now, I think Lavakin Brawler is pretty scary. It's going to attack as a 4/4, maybe more if they play any more elementals. So I'm pretty happy to sleep paralysis that. Means I have to take another 4 because the opponent's ahead. I definitely need to catch a break here. This is the problem with playing from behind. Hopefully we can draw Disfigure or Skeleton, or the opponent just won't come out that much more aggressively. Shifting Ceratop shouldn't be a big problem for our deck. We have double murder, but I don't have one. So at the moment, that's a card that's probably just going to kill me unless I top deck a murder. I mean, I can start putting the black creatures in front of it. It's pro-blue, but they can also give it trample. I still chose to play this 3/4 here over the Undead Servant just to be mana efficient. Next turn, I can play Servant and a 2-drop if I draw one. Also, Boreal Elemental is a better blocker against these other creatures, and they'd have to spend more mana to remove it. Pro-blue means we don't even have the option to block. So I know the Servants aren't performing well here this game, but remember, we didn't draw Vulture Lich, but also the real problem was that they were slow because we didn't have a 3-drop, and the opponent was on the play and kind of curved out. But our deck has tons of 3-mana cards, and even Skeleton, Disfigure, Metropolis Sprite, the 2/2 lifelink for 2 black vampire. We have plenty of things to do, including by turn 3. So for now, we're probably just dead. They can give trample to the Ceratops. The 5/3 here has trample. I think we're dead. So we're up against red-green, so Aether Gust is definitely coming in. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to change. 2 Blade Brands are already in. I could see taking out a land on the draw, but not on the play. I don't know what we want to take out on the play here. Definitely bringing Aether Gust in. It's a super powerful card. All of our cards are either good or have synergy. I guess maybe it has to just be Anticipate or like a Blade Brand. Blade Brand's pretty good against red-green creatures. I think Anticipate is probably the right card to take out. Well, that hand's no good, but at least we'll get to use the London Mulligan. Much better Mulligan rule. Thank you again, Wizards, for that awesome change. And this is a good 6. We'll clearly put an island on the bottom. We still have enough lands to cast every card in our hand. Might as well get out this lifelinker first. Hopefully it can attack next turn and gain us 2 life. Plus, we're not looking to sink mana into the Sprite just yet. We have a 3-drop to play. So I'm not afraid. We're definitely going to attack. We don't know if they have a pump spell or not. If they do, they can eat our creature. If they don't, we'll gain 2 and deal 2. And then we can use all our mana and play Vulture. It'd be really nice if we hit a Servant, but even if not, you only play 40 cards in Limited, so we'll probably draw more if we don't. Well, we milled 4 good spells, including Sorin and no Servant, so that was about as bad as possible, but still, we gained 2 life, and we have 2 more things to do for now, and hopefully we'll draw into Soul Salvage or Servants. This game on the play, they're not going to be too slow at all. And if the opponent has to trade off with one, that means, again, there's 3 more in there, and they're really nice draws. So Blade Brand there is a really nice draw, because now we can attack with both. I expect the opponent to put Thicket Crasher on Blood Burglar. They can only race Lifelink for so long. If they don't, then we're gaining 2 more anyway. And now we can trade up here. I would have played Sprite, but I think now we'd rather put out Barony Vampire. Just uses more mana and it has more power. Even if they play something that blanks our board, like this Mammoth Spider, we have such a big life total advantage that it's going to be pretty hard for them to attack. So now we're just hoping to sit around and draw Murders, Blade Brands, Soul Salvage, just anything good. And since we did top deck Murder right away, I'm not going to save it for something better than Spider. That would have stopped our flyer in hand, plus both of our 3/2s are now able to connect. Or get chump blocked. Don't think there's a reason to play this pre-combat. Unfortunately, we don't have anything in hand to discard to it. Still definitely going to play it. And the mill 1 is still actually good. It has a chance to put servants in the yard, as well as other creatures for soul salvage, or a fine skeleton. But the opponent's pretty dead here, unless they have Flame Sweep. I think they're pretty out of this game. Okay, so now we're going to be on the draw again. We do have the extra 2 mana card to help not get run over. Against a red-green creature deck, is there anything else we want to consider? Maybe like a Fortress Crab to block? Probably not. We definitely want these 2 Blade Brands, I think. We saw Plummet, so we could consider taking out an expensive flyer like Boreal Elemental. Maybe swap it for like Feral Abomination or something that could be more effective. Especially given the opponent has Shifting Ceratops. That's one of the scariest cards for our deck that they have. Because I don't really mind if they Plummet Vulture. I gain some life, they traded up 1 mana, and this fills my graveyard. And of course, if they're plummeting Sprite, like, good beats. But I don't necessarily want to spend 5 mana and have them plummet the Elemental, even though they have to pay 4 for it. Plus, Mammoth Spider stops it anyway, and the opponent's going to be on the play. They're an aggro deck, we're a grindy deck, so we're not really worried about how we're going to close. We'll do that with value. We're more interested in not getting run over. And just not having their cards be efficient, like if they plummet or 5-drop and then attack us. Okay, so this hand is pretty good. We've got the Lich, which is, with the 4 Servants, is probably the card I most want to see in my opening hand. If you just discard one of those and then play another one, that's incredible. Of course, with none of them in our hand, that's unlikely to happen. But Tomebound Lich is just a great, great Magic card all around. Like, we have a land-heavy hand. We'll be able to loot one of those away. Or even better, if we draw a second Servant, we can loot one of those away. I'm going to cycle this Blade Brand. This creature already has Death Touch, and like I said, we're looking for a second Servant. So I think it's right to just pay the 2 and cycle while we don't have anything else to do. Now I'm definitely playing the Lich. Let's see what we draw. Also, if we don't find Servant, but we find Skeleton, that's a really good discard to Lich. So we didn't find any of those, though, and I'd rather cast my 4-drop than just discard it. We have excess lands, so we'll discard an island. Remember, now with these 2 murders to deal with the big creatures, if the opponent has to trade with our servants, that's just another good way to get them in the graveyard. I mean, they're 3/2 creatures. It's not like we're playing just a servant combo deck here. 4 mana 3/2 is a little below the rate you want, but it's a real card on the board that can block and attack and has to be dealt with. I definitely wasn't going to block there. We can do better with Lich. Even though not attacking, not blocking with your creatures is awkward, next turn we can use 5 mana and play Gust and Murder. Servant stops the creatures in play, so this turn I'm just going to cast it and pass. Pretty bad turn cycle there, but we have a good hand. And the opponent has to decide whether they want to trade with Servant or not. It looks like they are going to. Well, I didn't want to trade away the Lich. I'll happily trade away the Servant, of course. If I block the Thicket Crasher, I take 5. If I block the Shaman, I take 4, because the Crasher has Trample. But I'd rather take 1 extra damage to remove a substantially better creature. So now, if we use Murder and Aether Gust on their small creature, on these 2 creatures here, we're only taking 2 damage, or 3, I guess, counting the Spitter. We're gaining 1 from the Lich when it attacks, and we're getting to loot away an island that we don't need at all. So I think now we definitely want to attack with the Lich here to start. There's no need to kill the Brawler first. If they double block, we'll just Murder or Gust the Brawler, and then we'll get to eat one of these small creatures. So sadly, we didn't find anything to do, but again, we're only taking 3 from 11 down to 8. We have 2 cards to play. We don't need to do anything before they attack because we're not going to kill Spitter this turn. It does less damage than Shaman. So first order of business, I guess, we don't really want to put Loaming Shaman on top because then they can replay it and shuffle our graveyard in. So I think first order of business is Aether Gust the Lavakin Brawler. Let's make sure that actually goes through. If they give it hexproof or something, then I'm going to murder it. Now, after that resolves, we'll go to blockers. Okay, they're not playing any pump spells or anything. Let's murder the Shaman, because we don't want to take too much damage, and we still have another murder plus our loot creature here to hopefully find more spells. And that's definitely a good enough creature to murder. So we murder their blocker. Now we can connect with the Lich, which means we'll get to loot away one of these extra lands, all of which are pretty much extra. I'm not going to play them because the most expensive card in our deck costs 6, and we may get to loot them away to the Lich, or we may not. What I am going to do, though, is attack with the Lich. The only way they can kill it is if they double block involving the Brawler, and they don't know that we're not holding bounce or removal, so I doubt they're going to do that. But even if they did do it, I'd still be trading with Brawler. It's not like I'm trading Lich away for one of these little rink-a-dink creatures. And this turn, we'll just lay a 5/5 Death Touch. Really powerful creature on this board. It's only trading with Brawler because they have 3 elementals out, but I'm okay with that. Also, if they don't have anything else to do, that means Blood Burglar can attack profitably next turn. If they go for the double block, I already have the Disfigure to get the blowout. So even though this looks like a trade down, and it's a little bit of one, I'm just trying to ride this Lich to victory and even possibly the Blood Burglar. No need to Sleep Paralysis one of those small creatures. If they go for a double block, I've got Disfigure. They already don't have a profitable block on the Lich, And even if something goes wrong in combat, I don't really care about this Blood Burglar. And you can see we were very flooded this game, but we looted away all the lands with Lich. So this Lich really went a long way towards winning us this game. So now I have to discard something. It's not going to be Undead Servant. There's one in the yard. It's going to be, that's a 2/2 and a 3/2. Even though there's 2 targets for Disfigure, I'd rather hold on to Sleep Paralysis in case they play something big that can actually stop my board. So that makes 3 creatures, helps the opponent go wide, but ultimately it's just 3 power and toughness. We're now gaining 3 life when we attack with these 2 lifelink creatures, so I'm in no way scared of them alphaing here. I would just eat some creatures, take a few points of damage. There's no creature worth sleep paralysing. They may have a slightly profitable double block or 2, but I'm okay with that. The only question now is whether I send the Lich. Everything else I'm pretty happy to trade off. But if they triple block the Lich here with 3 1/1s, I only kill one of those. That's not an acceptable trade for a card this good. So what I'm going to do is attack with everything else. They can double block the Blood Burglar with a 1/2 and a 1/1, and it's only going to trade with a 1/2. That's a bit of a trade down, but I'll get my 2 life, and it occupies 2 of their 5 creatures. Otherwise, they could like double block Servant, which I'm actively happy about. I'm about to play another Servant. I'm happy if this goes to the graveyard. And we'll get in some damage, gain some life, make some trades to help clear the way for the Lich. I'm never going to use Sleep Paralysis in this spot just to get in, because this can stop a bomb rare, something really powerful, and I'm winning on board, and it's only getting worse for the opponent, as our zombie horde is now growing. And now they don't even have enough power out to stop the Lich, so we can attack with everything. They'll probably double block Servant. So I'm not going to play this Undead Servant here because Flame Sweep is one of the only ways they could conceivably win. We're now up a bunch of life. We've got Sleep Paralysis for a big creature. I'm comfortable with our board. I'd rather not put this 1-card army in play. If they do sweep the board, I can play this and make like 3 2/2 zombies with it. So I think that's a better play. What I can do is use Sleep Paralysis frivolously here because we're about to attack them to 2. One of the only things I don't love about these traditional drafts is how long they are. I personally think they should just be 3 rounds. Not single elim or anything like that. I just would like 3 rounds. If you get 3 wins, you get a certain prize. If you get 2 wins, you get a certain prize. If you get 1 win, you get a certain prize. This way you always get to play 3 rounds with your draft deck. 5 to 6 feels like too much to me, but I also don't like single elimination. Sometimes I draft a really sweet deck. I don't want to get a bad draw and be done after only 1 match. So we're looking for lands. We've got 3 servants, which is nice if we find that Lich and or just some lands to cast them. I'm definitely not going to murder the Sprite if they just attack here and don't pump. I'll take 1 to see if they play a better 3-drop to murder. And unless they play another flyer or something, I might murder the Sprite end of turn. And I might murder the Sprite if they pump it. But if they're just going to hit me for 1, then I'm going to wait and see if they play something I'd rather kill. Okay, so they didn't add to the board. I think I can race a Sprite. So I think what I'm going to do here is not murder anything then. Now that they ramped, they may play some giant creature, and I may need the murder for that. Just start getting Undead Servants out. Of course, the downside of racing with Undead Servants is that you don't have them in the graveyard, so the next ones won't make zombies. You're really hoping to trade these off, so they're much better against like a red-green deck than they are against a blue Flyers deck, potentially. But that said, you're not usually going to draw this many copies, not draw Lich, not Vulture any, and not have the ability to trade them off. For now, though, we can still attack, play Elemental. It stops both of their creatures. Risen Reef is pretty scary, but I'm not going to murder it here over dropping my 5-mana 3/4 flyer. We don't really know whether they have more elementals in hand or not, how many more they have. I'm interested in attacking, trying to force the opponent to trade with my servants, saving murder for things that blank my board. So the opponent's saying they have a pump spell. I definitely believe them. But I'm not going to be able to leave my mana up with so much to do. So I think I should still just block. I don't want Feral Invocation necessarily to stick around. Let's see, on like a Sprite. There's the 2 mana +3/+3, which is probably what they have. The thing is, if I don't block and then I pass back, they can like draw cards with the Sailor. I think I would rather just block. So I'm going to put Boreal on Reef and just see what happens. Actually, I guess if it was Feral Invocation, they can't really make this attack. So it's probably got to be +3/+3, in which case I might as well save extra damage and just block Sprite, I think. And even if it is Invocation, all they can do with that card is turn this into a 3/4 and have these bounce, or pay 1 blue and have them trade. So Sprite is probably the right block. It's tempting to block Reef because it's such a better creature, but there's no way this is a bluff. They have to have this card. So I might as well save a potential point of damage by blocking the Sprite. Okay, so this turn, I'm going to attack with the Servant and play another one. They're definitely not going to block. Overgrowth Elemental's really good, and they don't want to put Servant in the yard for me. But unless they have some way to bounce or remove this one, this stops their ground attackers. I'll happily trade this off with Reef or Elemental. And again, they're not dealing that much damage to me in the air. So obviously 4 mana 3/2, if you're not getting any zombies, is not a strong card. But again, we drew pretty awkward. We didn't mill any. We didn't draw any ways to put it in the yard. And we drew all 4. That said, they can still dominate the board on the ground. I mean, we attacked for 3. We're only taking a couple in the air. Now we can attack for 6. Well, that's a creature we do have to murder. The only question is whether we want to attack first or not. If they block one and then we murder it, they can fight the other one and they won't take damage, but they'll only kill one of ours. If we murder it first, they're going to fight one and kill it. I think they're unlikely to block. But the problem is if we're going to lose one, since we didn't draw a land, we can't play another one. We're only going to play Sprite this turn. So I really need to have one back so that I can stop their ground creatures. So that means no attack. That's not how I want to tap, though, because I want to be able to pump the Sprite. So I'm going to tap 3 black. I'm going to murder the Gargos because I have to. It's a really powerful Windmill Slam broken rare. They get to 2 for 1 me, but it's not the worst. Servant goes to the graveyard. And I do have more in hand to play. And the auto tapper still wants to tap all my blue, so I'll tap manually again. And now we're pretty even on board. The Risen Reef is scary. We don't know whether the opponent's holding elementals, but probably not too many. And we can attack with the Servant next turn. They'll probably just take it, but if they block, that's awesome for us. And then we can play another Servant, which will make a 2/2. So these are way more threatening than a normal 3/3 or 3/2 would be because the opponent knows if we're playing it, we're probably playing a lot of it, so they don't necessarily want to be trading. I will just trade off these flyers. It opens the door for Spectral Sailor, but that's not particularly relevant. It's 1 point of damage. So that's an interesting draw. We could play the Lich, discard a Servant, but at this point, with 1 Servant in the yard and 1 in play, I'm not even sure that's better than just casting them and liching away lands. So I think what I'm going to do here is attack with the Servant now. They're probably going to take it because they know we probably have more. And now we can play another one, which gives us a 2/2. Again, even with 4 servants and some ways to mill yourself, this isn't some broken servant deck. It's just a fine 4-drop for this deck. It's an annoying, grindy card for an annoying, grindy deck. Well, that'll put an end to the grind. I thought we were doing okay despite the opponent having all this good stuff, and Risen Reef is broken. This is the best uncommon in the set. But, and Overgrowth Elemental is a strong uncommon elemental also. But Overcome gives them all trample. Now we've got nothing. I assume we're dead. We could double block and absorb 4 points of trample. They've got 4 after the pump, 9, 12, 15, 20, 24. Way too much. Good game. Okay, again, Aether Gust definitely coming in. Strong card versus green. I guess maybe we want this Pattern Matcher to search up copies of Servant after playing one. I didn't even really think that much about that. Probably should have main decked this card. That said, we do have a lot of 4s, and we don't have a lot of cheaper stuff to search out other copies of beneath it. Like, if I had a second Skeleton, a second Blood Burglar, a second Sprite, I would be much more inclined to play it. You don't really want your 4-drops to have to combo with each other. The reason the Servant thing works is because you can play one and then trade it immediately, and then play the second Servant. If you play a Servant, trade it immediately, then you have nothing to Pattern Matcher. We can't take up Boreal against them. It stops all their small flyers. So I don't think I'm going to do Pattern Matcher. Think, again, I will just take out Anticipate and get to the games. All right, 2-lander on the play, kind of rough, but we have both kinds of mana. We chose to play 17, so we got about half our deck's land, 15 of 33. Hopefully I can draw 2. Well, that's a decent first draw. We can cycle it, and we can cycle it on their creature if they play one. And they did, and of course we need lands. So while Bladebrand can be good against green decks to kill bigger things, we definitely want to cycle it. Still no lands, that's kind of unfortunate. And another turn 3 Risen Reef. I wonder if they have 1 or 2. Oh, still no lands. Easy discard, though. So I'm almost certainly going to lose here. While my draws were awkward both games, the opponent's deck is also really good. Elementals, when you get it, is one of the strongest archetypes in the format. And the opponent here, I don't know if they have 1 or 2 Risen Reefs, but they have Risen Reef, which, like I said, is the best uncommon in the set. And they played it both games on turn 3. And then this is a really nice common elemental. This card's fine if you have elemental synergies. We saw Overgrowth Elemental, another really powerful uncommon elemental for this deck. There it is. This is just a very beautiful, low-curve, cheap creature, blue-green elementals deck that draws extra cards and goes wide, can kill you with Overcome. This is just a all-around beautiful deck by the opponent. So we did draw the lands here, so I'm not going to concede yet. We're probably going to lose. We're dead if they have Overcome or much else. But for this turn, I can cast Servant, get a 3/2 and a 2/2. If we draw land next turn and they're just magically holding almost nothing, then Boreal can hold the sky. Really, Boreal technically stops their whole board right now. I'm not saying that's going to go that way. They're probably holding either counters, bounce removal, or elementals, or their Gargos. I forgot they had that broken rare too. But we did draw the land. I'm going to play the Elemental, not murder the Gargos. If anything, we can triple block the Gargos and then soul salvage back one Servant, and then we can play it and get another 2/2 again. Well, there's the overcome, so that's all of it. So now we're dead. So the opponent definitely had a better deck than me. I think this is a pretty good grindy blue-black deck, but the opponent's deck is borderline a masterpiece. Both of the uncommons for elementals, all the cheap creatures and draw cards creatures, as well as the Hydra Lord, which is a Windmill Slam broken rare. And Overcome is a nice finisher for a blue-green creature deck. So that takes us to 1-1. So one more loss and we're out, or 4 more wins. Okay, we finally saw Sorin. We don't have any islands, but there's 8 of them in there, and we have a lot more black cards than blue. So I'm going to keep this on the play. Hope we get there. Keep and lose has quickly become one of my favorite sayings on my stream, because basically mulling hands like this, even with the London Mulligan, is just not a good strategy. You don't want to go down a card. We've got land drops. We have a potential good card. In Sorin, we need 1 island to basically play our whole hand. Sometimes you just have to hope you hit 8 outers. Unfortunately, Sorin's not doing anything right now. But it's still well worth getting in play because we're plussing it. You may sack a Vamp. So you can plus it and add some loyalty, even if you're not getting any other value. As I said, it's a situational card. We ended up with 3 vampires. That's not a great number. I'm not sure if it was right or wrong to first pick it. It definitely might have been wrong. There's not a lot of vampires in the set, but there are multiple common ones. And since I started the draft with it, I was going to prioritize them the whole draft, and we basically just never saw them. Zombies aren't vampires. But we can still just sit around plussing Sorin for now. And look, you're never going to play a life gain spell, but if they start attacking Sorin, it's still gaining a lot of life. Hopefully we can draw an island, get the Sprite out to stop the Seer. We have Sleep Paralysis and Blade Brand to do some work too. Who knows? Maybe Sorin will end up performing for us. And it's actually gaining a lot more life because it gives lifelink and death touch to a creature when you plus it. So it's going to give this Undead Servant lifelink. I would never play 3 mana gain 10 life, but that's basically the fail rate. Kind of awkward, really need to draw an island, but I'm going to start here by plussing Sorin on Servant. Not looking to hold it back. I'd rather gain 3 life. If they take this and don't use removal or something, I'm going to end up cycling this Blade Brand, because again, we're trying to find an island. I mean, this isn't going to change anything, but I guess we'll do it now. If they do have Unsummon, which of their creatures would they want to Unsummon to fizzle this? The Seer draws a card, the Healer gains 3. I would rather them gain 3 than draw a card. I guess I'll actually do it to the Healer. I doubt they're going to Unsummon in response. There's another card we haven't seen yet. Another card that Sorin works pretty nicely with, giving it Death Touch, so it can definitely get to attack. Okay, and we finally found our island, so now we have choices to make. I guess if we trade with Overgrowth Elemental, that's a pretty good trade for us. So I'm going to start by giving Audacious Thief, Lifelink, and Death Touch, and then attacking. And now we can kind of get going here. We can play the Servant. We have one in the yard, so we get another 2/2 ground blocker, and we can play the Sprite. We would have needed a blue on tap to be able to protect Sorin with the Sprite here on the Seer, but I'm just going to let Sorin go. Unfortunately, we didn't draw any of our Vamps, and we couldn't protect it earlier. It's not important to protect it now. We can Sleep Paralysis any big creature that would stop our board. And on board, we're up in life. We've got a bunch of creatures. Thief's drawing cards when it's attacking. So I like our position. I'm going to Sleep Paralysis that Spider because it stops the Thief. And then just attack the opponent with everything. If they want to trade anything for that... if they want to trade Overgrowth for any of these, I'm happy with that. And if not, then this is a race we're winning, and we're getting to keep attacking and drawing cards. Diamond Knight is an interesting card. So if I ever had like a one-color deck or a deck with like 15 cards of the same color, especially if some of them drew cards, I would definitely play it. But I don't like that card. Here's why. The upside doesn't outweigh the downside. It's a slow-growing 3-drop. It's good. If I could play it on turn 3 every time and never draw it as the last card or in the late game, I would play it in every deck. Because you choose the color, you know which color you have a couple cards of in your hand, and it'll grow. But some games are on the defensive. It's a 3-mana 1/1, then it grows to a 2/2, then a 3/3. That's not a good card. Other games are on the offensive. You play it, you grow it. It's an effective card. That's fine. But we just talked about what it does when you play it on turn 3. What about when you play it on turn 7? What about when you draw it off the top on an empty board or in a relative stalemate or towards the end of the game? It's an embarrassing card. It's a 3-mana 1/1. So that's not a card I like to put in my decks. For now, we'll attack with everything. I don't really see any reason to send the skeleton. I might be missing a point, but ultimately the healer would just probably bounce with it, even if the other creatures were going to block. So I'm going to play this Servant now. 1/2/2 out of it's good enough. There's no reason not to pump here, I don't think. I maybe should have played the island first and anticipated first in case I drew something that would make me change my mind on what I wanted to do here. But I've still got exactly 2 for anticipate. Can see one more turn and anticipate end of their turn. Certainly reasonable, though maybe I should have just played maybe I should have just started the turn by anticipating in case I drew something that made me change my mind as far as what I wanted to do. They're still attacking with that flyer. None of these have reach, right? No. They're not really respecting it. It's 3 for 2, but actually, I don't even know if Murder's better or worse than Bladebrand. They have 3/3 toughness creatures. We can Bladebrand one of our 2-power attackers and attack with it, and then we kill one of theirs and draw a card. Or we can murder one of their creatures. It might be better to murder the flyer so that we can keep hitting with the flyer. I'm not really sure. Bladebrand drawing a card is pretty nice here. We could actually send, like, Sprite, 2 servants, and a skeleton, Bladebrand the skeleton and trade it for one of these, and then buy back skeleton. And then we get a card off Bladebrand. I like that. It's not often you're going to take Bladebrand over murder, and I think it's close here, but I think it's the right play. Any trade with the 3/2 is good for me. We've got Soul Salvage to buy them back, plus 1 more left in the deck. So now I'm going to Bladebrand the skeleton, draw another card, pump the Sprite. I don't really want to miss damage. Opponent's getting pretty low. Some profitable exchanges. They gain a couple life from the Overgrowth, and it grows once because one of their 2 creatures that died was an elemental, but that's all right. We don't really need the skeleton in play, so let's draw 2 cards, see if we draw anything better, like this Barony Vampire to put out. Now, their Overgrowth is bigger than my team right now, but they are running out of stuff, and we still have tons of life. So if we draw Bladebrand or other copy of Murder, I know 1's on the bottom, but we have 2. We're good. Also, we have 2 Undead Servants in the yard, so if we draw one of those, we now make 2 2/2s when we play it. Wow, this opponent's got Risen Reef and Overgrowth Elemental too. Looks like people are definitely drafting some elementals here. Plus, we can always just alpha right now. So is there any reason to soul salvage anything pre-combat? No. But now if Undead Servant dies, it's even better for us. They only have one creature bigger than my team. Seems like a pretty easy alpha to me. And that's not enough, so Risen Reef's got to chump the 3/2. Pump the Sprite here for the trade. And unless they have a counter, this game is pretty much over. Because now we're soul salvaging back. Undead Servants. Just leave one in the yard and bring one back, and then also bring back the flyer. But I think we're overrunning them by enough that I would rather put out the ground creature than the flyer. Just get another 2/2. And the zombie horde does it. So now we're on the draw for game 2. We definitely want Aether Gust because it's another green player. Boreal looks good though. We saw small flyers again. I think maybe I should be boarding out one island. Maybe I'm being a little too conservative. We're on the draw. We don't have a ton of 2s, even with Gust coming in, and you don't really want to play Gust on turn 2. Anticipate, Confined, Lich, Confined Servant. I think on the play, I'll go back to 17 lands, but on the draw, I think 16 with the Anticipate is probably fine. I don't really love Anticipate with only 7 blue sources. It's a little dicey, but Anticipate's also a useful card in the late game when you can pick your most expensive, most powerful spell and scroll past some smaller stuff. And this deck's curve really isn't that high. 16 lands with Anticipate and Lich is probably enough. I guess 16 lands was not enough. I'm just kidding. Even if we drew a land instead of the Gust, we'd still mulligan. Okay, so no swamps, but we're keeping. We have 2 lands in Anticipate to find one. We have turn 2 Burglar, turn 3 Sorin, so I don't want to get rid of either of those. I can't get rid of Island or Anticipate, so my only choices are Thief or Servant. I guess it's going to be Servant. That's kind of a late game plan, and since we only drew 1 and we didn't draw Lich, it doesn't necessarily fit this hand. Whereas if we find a swamp and we just get to go turn 2 Burglar, turn 3 Sorin, that could be incredible. If we don't find the swamp here on turn 2, then I'm probably going to play Thief turn 3 rather than Burglar anyway, just to try and get that going, but it depends on what they do. We have to take swamp. We don't really have a choice. Well, now we have choices. So we can play Lich and discard Servant. We know one of our Servants is on the bottom, but we still have another 2 in there. We could play Thief to try and get that going first, which is probably what we should do. If we would have played Burglar last turn, look at how great the Sorin turn 3 would have been. Pump the Burglar to a 3/3 attack, gain 3, and the Burglar stays at 3/3, and the Sorin's got 5 loyalty. That said, Sorin's most likely going to be too slow now that we're on the draw, and we didn't have our 2-drop on turn 2. So I'm going to try and get extra cards with this Thief, try and get that going. They may not have a creature big enough to blanket. If they have to trade with it, that's really good. It puts me up a card. This also maximizes my chances at making land drop 4 next turn, because I can always play Lich, draw, and discard 1 immediately, but the Thief has to attack to get me a card. Pretty awkward that they drew a card and scryed and didn't do anything. I'm wondering what they're holding. Maybe they have a Convolute. The flash creature makes sense. But again, this is a good trade. Thief already drew a card. And now I think we just want to play Lich. Next turn, if we find a swamp, we can play Blood Burglar and Sorin, pump the Blood Burglar immediately, even if it can't attack. Discarding the first Undead Servant's pretty strong. We can also plus Sorin and fling the Burglar at their flyer if necessary, and then we have Vampire to pump now too. Let's see what else they have this turn. Okay, so we didn't draw Swamp, but we did draw Undead Servant number 2. So Undead Servant can trade with Thicket Crasher, so I'm going to attack with the Lich. If they want to block, this is a pretty reasonably good trade for me. If they take it, then I've got the Servant to drop. So while it would be fancy to discard Servant here and play Servant and get 2/2/2s, I probably just want to discard Island. I'm kind of choked on black mana, and I'll be able to do 2 things a turn anyway, and I want to cast multiple Servants if I can. I know that 4th one's towards the bottom, so I'm not going to be greedy. I don't need mad excess 2/2s in play right now. It's not like they're swarming me. Okay, nice stuff by the opponent. Interesting whether they wanted to pump the Crasher or the Seer. If they pumped the Crasher, they could have attacked with it. I would double block. So they don't want to offer that, I guess. So they're pumping the Flyer to keep hitting me there. As far as me on the ground, I would happily trade Lich or Servant for either of these. And I have another Servant to play, to block with on the ground. So I think we just attack with both of those. They're making the trade. This is going to grow their elemental and not let me keep looting. Certainly the right play. But I'll happily spend 4 mana and get a 3/2 and a 2/2 as the zombie horde grows. Still waiting on that second Swamp, and then I can play Sorin and Blood Burglar plus Sorin, sack the Burglar, deal 3 damage to a creature, any target for that matter, but it's going to be a creature, and gain 3 life. Pretty unfortunate, given we're playing 9/7, it's turn 1,000,000, and we anticipated for our only Swamp. But it'll come sooner or later. For now, what do we want to do on the ground? We have Blade Brand. The 2/4 is pretty annoying. I kind of need blockers anyway, so I don't think I need to force the issue that bad and attack with the zombies. I could take the turn to just play Vulture. It does give me a blocker for the Seer, gain some life. I do kind of want to attack with these Servants, though, and then Blade Brand, the one they block, because that gives me a shot to hit the Swamp. I'm probably being too greedy, though. With a hand this good, maybe I just play Vulture and pass. Yeah, I'm a pretty greedy player, but my hand is loaded with business. Even a Swamp is a really good draw for me. I mean, it's probably my best draw. I think the right play here is just to get this Vulture out. It'll probably gain a life or 2, and it gives me a blocker for Cloudkin Seer. Plus, they have their mana up. There's nothing they can have really to counter Vulture or anything, I don't think. But if they did have on summon and I attack with Servant, go for Blade Brand, and they unsummon it, it's pretty bad. The main reason to attack and play Blade Brand would be because I really want to draw a card. I can wait a turn on that. Of course, if I knew they were holding Plummet, I might have took a different line, but no big deal. We can make that trade. So the ground is pretty stable. We're taking the 1 hit in the air. I think now I have to make the play that I wanted to make last turn. Drew another Blade Brand, pulled another card out of their hand. Also, they're in a position where they're going to start activating that tracker, which I really don't want. Okay, so they elected to take it. Makes sense. They know I'm up to something. The question is, what am I going to do? I could buy back Vulture and Boreal Elemental with Soul Salvage. I could play a Vampire. This way, next turn, I can grow it and give it Death Touch and Lifelink or throw it at something. I shouldn't die this turn, so I think that's the right play, is just to put out the bigger one now. I don't need the Lifelink from the Blood Burglar because Sorin gives Death Touch and Lifelink. And next turn, I'm either going to plus Sorin and throw Blood Burglar or Barony Vampire at Cloudkin Seer, or I'm going to plus it to give this Death Touch and Lifelink and +1/+1 and attack with it, depending on what the opponent does and what I draw. Risen Reef and Season of Growth. This could be problematic. Hopefully they don't go off too much. They should certainly attack with the flyer, unless they have some kind of a trick. Attacking with anything else wouldn't make sense. I would happily double block or block. Or double block. Okay, we finally drew second swamp. That helps give us some more options. They shouldn't be able to kill the Sorin with just the flyer. So I think playing it and plussing it on the Vampire and then attacking with it makes the most sense here. They can't activate Tracker and they topped a card. Maybe I should just throw one of my Vampires at Cloudkin Seer. I am in a good position to play defense. This is pretty close. The thing is, if they take the hit from the Vampire, I'm gaining 4 life, and the Sorin's not dying to the Seer right now. And if they have a pump spell, I'm not necessarily that happy to throw it at the Seer anyway. Yeah, the right play is probably to pump and attack. This actually makes the Barony Vampire bigger, too. And now, kind of the same as last turn, I'm going to send these Servants. If they go for a block with the Tracker, I'll happily still just play Blade Brand. Tracker's not an elemental. Overgrowth isn't growing. As long as I get my 4 life here, I'm not going to die from 10 unless they have, like, Overcome or something. So I assume they have something. I don't know what. We'll see. Nope, doesn't look like they're doing anything. So I kill their creatures. They gain a few points of life. I gain 4. Pretty happy with that. This game would have went much easier if I just drew second swamp. Even if I was stuck on 4. Just being able to play Blade Brand and Burglar in a turn or things like that. Okay, they don't have any Vampires, so this is interesting. I don't know what they're going to steal. Sorin, normally you would snap steal your opponent's Planeswalkers, but Sorin will only give their creatures lifelink and Death Touch. So they took the 4/3. Makes sense. Agent's one of the best rares in the set. This card is incredible. So, what do we want to do now? If we play Blood Burglar plus Sorin and sack it, we can take out Cloudkin so that they can't kill Sorin. But we're not really going to be able to defend Sorin anyway, I don't think. I mean, maybe we can with Murder, Blade Brand, and the Soul Salvage to get back our Vampires. Or we could take out Agent and then attack for 4. I guess there's no real need to do that. We can Blade Brand the one they block anyway. But if Sorin dies, we can't Soul Salvage it back. So we basically have to hold our creatures back and play defensive. It could easily be the right play, though. And I don't really want to play for the long game when they have Spectral Sailor and Season of Growth. So I think I'm going to play aggressively. I think I'm going to let Sorin go, basically. So what I'm going to do is plus here, sack the vampire, take out their 3 toughness blocker. Plus now they can't bounce it or anything. A green-blue deck is unlikely to be able to recover it from the graveyard, but from their hand they probably can. And now I can use murder, so they're gonna have to send multiple things at Sorin, or I'll murder and save it. Murder something and save it. And then we can soul salvage and we can get back like 1 Undead Servant. Make an army again. Maybe get back 2 even. We'll see. The opponent should know something's up because they know I have all spells in hand. So they're sending only the Cloud Conceer at the Sorin. So I'm going to attempt to murder the flyer here and save Sorin for now. If I untap with Sorin, I can soul salvage, get back Undead Servant and one of these vampires, I guess the cheaper one, and then I can throw the vampire at one of their creatures, gain 3, or throw it at them for that matter, depending on what they do. And I don't really care about taking 6, that doesn't matter. Looks like the opponent's thinking probably about whether to draw a card or not. Okay, so that was bad for me, of course. They killed both my creatures and only their 1/1 there, but I'm not sure why they did that before dealing damage. They just missed 1 point. Okay, though. Now we can go with the plan. Soul Salvage, Undead Servant. Do we need a vampire? They have a 1/1 flyer out now. I mean, not this turn anyway. So but we still want a vampire because of the Lightning Helix ability. We'll grab an Undead Servant and we'll grab the cheaper vampire. I don't think it matters if I'm going to throw it anyway. And then as long as their last card isn't a counter for the Servant, we get a team again here. Hello, zombies. And we can plus Sorin even though we're not doing anything with it. Sadly, zombies aren't vampires. But they are zombies. We did just play a 4-mana 3/2 and get 2 more 2/2 zombies. Pretty strong. Rabid Bite, really nice combo with Season of Growth. Target your creature and draw a card and its removal. Wow, and again. This was pretty impressive. I was like, I'm fine against removal. I'll just double block the Barony Vampire if they can kill my Undead Servant. Well, I thought they would attack Sorin with Barony Vampire, in which case I would have chump blocked it. I don't really know why they didn't. I guess I'm not scared that they have something else, because if they had it, they would have used it. So now I guess we can attack and then Blade Brand. This is a pretty good trade up. And if they didn't attack, I'm guessing they're planning to block. Anyways, we have Skeleton as a backup blocker. And then here, play a land first, just in case they have Convolute. But I'm not going to throw it. I'm going to pump it, because it is a vampire. And next turn I can pump it again, which will turn it into a 4/4 lifelink Death Touch. So they need to have a big creature to block it. And even if they do, I gain 4 life. How many cards did I scry to the bottom? When do I draw my Undead Servant? So we really need to draw something here. We can pump, and then they're not going to have a good block, but they'll be able to kill Sorin. So sadly, we bricked. So this turn, I think we just want to pump and not attack because our 4/4 stopping their 3/3. It is continuing to grow, though. And we are getting closer to that Undead Servant. We're still a lot of turns away, but if we get there... So now we really need to draw something. Well, a few too many lands. So if we plus here and attack, we'll be at 13. Be pretty surprised if they take it because they don't know anything that we might be holding. But if we just pass the turn, we just end up chumping. That's not really acceptable. So I think we should attack. My guess is they'll block with Octo Prophet. Maybe they'll double block or block with Vorse Claw. If they take it, we're just dead. But think it was worth the risk because I don't really know how we could win. If we don't do that, we could plus and throw this at the Prophet, take 1,000,000, or throw it at the Elemental, take 1,000,000. Sorin's dying, we're dying. This is just not really a winnable game from here. Well, they didn't kill us. Certainly they should have tried, because if I had removal, I could have just kept Sorin alive too. But we get another draw step. Don't know that we have many outs. Let's see what we draw. This does have lifelink. But, yeah, we're just dead. The 3 lands in a row at the end just sealed our fate. Not a bad game for playing from behind, though, and having swamp problems. So now we're on the play. I think I want to take Anticipate out, probably. I don't know what to bring in. Maybe a Cutthroat. We're on the play and they have a decent amount of big stuff. Oh no, I just wanted an island. I forgot I boarded out an island. 17 on the play looks right. And then Cutthroat out. Do we have any bad cards against them? All of these cards are good. Nope. Definitely a play first deck. We have Audacious Thief, Blood Burglar, Sorin, even the Undead Servants. If we get to play one and then attack and force trades, they're stronger. This deck's missing a Bone Splinters or two. That's a great way to put Undead Servant in the yard. Combos well with Skeleton. I think I saw like 1, maybe 2 during the draft, but I took better cards over them. That's something that this deck is really missing, though. Double Murder, of course, is very nice, and Sleep Paralysis, so it's not like I can't remove a creature and disfigure. But Bone Splinters in particular is really cheap, can allow you to double spell for profit. This is a near perfect hand. We have a 2-drop, and then we have turn 3 Lich, discarding Servant, and as long as we find 1 land in like 4 or 5 cards, because we get a card off Lich and all our draw steps, we can play a turn 4 Servant, making a second copy. Making a free zombie anyway, not a second copy of Servant. So that makes it interesting, though, because you do want to get the Thief going as quickly as possible. You can still do the Lich Servant plan later. So I think I'm going to play Thief over the whole Great Lich Servant plan, because if I get to attack and draw cards, that's awesome, and it's pretty hard for them to blank this with a 3-drop. They may play something that can trade with it, but it's not likely they're going to play something that can blanket. Now, I'd rather play Lich than Servant, so I'm going to go ahead and pump. Same plan, just a turn later, and we're getting cards off Thief. Opponent's missing green. Unfortunate for them. They found it, but against this hand, this should be too late. If they win this game, I'll throw my deck in the garbage. No, I'm just kidding. If they win this game, it would actually be kind of awesome. But I really doubt it's going to be possible. I think they did play Flame Sweep last game, though, right? That wasn't a previous opponent, because all my opponents are playing Temur Elemental so far, it looks like. So for now, that is the main card we want to keep in mind. Maybe a way they could catch back up. Anyways, we're definitely going to attack. See what we draw. We're probably not going to use 5 mana this turn, so I think we'll pump Sprite. Again, connect with Lich, see what we draw. So that could protect us from Flame Sweep. I think with Soul Salvage, I'm not super afraid. It would even kill their Risen Reef. But on later turns, I want to be able to use Aether Gust. Pretty nice this hits spells too. It'll only put it on top, but that may be all we need. So this turn, I think we want to discard Island, probably, and just play the Servant. If they sweep, it's going to clear our board except for the Lich, but it's going to clear their Risen Reef too. And then we can Soul Salvage, get back an Undead Servant, and maybe the Flyer or something. Plus, you do still just want to make them have it. I mean, they're only 25% to have it, even if they have one in their deck. They've seen about a quarter of their deck. Now, let's say we murder the Elemental and attack with everything. Do we have lethal? They can block a 3/2. They take 2, 4, 6, 7. No. But we can do that and still have Aether Gust up. Well, now we can just disfigure. But either way, let's see. Do we want to disfigure and murder? We can't have Aether Gust up. 2, 4, 7, 9, 10. But we do have lethal if we do that, unless they have an on-summon. So I don't think we need to do that. This Risen Reef isn't really stopping anything, and it's kind of risky. I think we can start by disfiguring Elemental. And then I'm just going to Alpha. Basically, we have so many more creatures than the opponent now. The Lich is going to live. All I really want to make sure is that they're not able to resolve a potential Flame Sweep, because that's the only way they could win this game. And we can even add Barony Vampire to the board because we still have our 2 mana up. So they're taking... Okay, well, they conceded. Maybe that was a previous opponent because I don't know why they'd concede if that card was in their deck. Either way, even if it wasn't them, that's the card we want to be thinking about because it's the only way they can get back in that game. Okay, definitely a play first deck, like I've already talked about. Not as perfect as last game, but a pretty good hand. Can't really always expect to have 2 drops. Would be nice to go like turn 2 Blood Burglar, turn 3 Soar in one game. But for now, I'll settle for turn 3 Thief, turn 4 Removal. Definitely play Thief over Barony Vampire. Drawing cards is better than connecting for a few points of damage. And hopefully they don't have removal. If they just tap out for some creature, we can sleep paralysis and attack and draw cards. Anytime you're drawing extra cards, you're in good shape. I love drawing extra cards with my creatures. I was very high on Gateway Sneak, and I'm very high on Audacious Thief. Some games it's not going to perform, but it's a 3-mana 2/2, and it literally wins you the game sometimes. And now we can get started. That's a more than good enough creature to sleep paralysis, and that means we get to attack, draw a card, and it lives to do it again. We are out of removal. We don't even have a Blade Brand, so there's no guarantee it'll be able to attack again next turn. But at some point, we'll probably draw into that stuff. For now, though, we want to get started on putting our servants in the graveyard. You always want to discard the first copy if you can. Not sure what the opponent's doing at the moment. Looks like they smuggled the Marauding Raptor. Okay. So they have a 2/4 untapped. That can't profitably block the Lich, though. And we're going to be able to play multiple creatures here. So I think we can start by attacking with the Lich. Death Touch plus Lifelink and the Loot ability is just a really, really strong card. This is a fantastic card. Take this over virtually everything if you're blue-black. I'm not 100% about Murder, but I think the Lich might even be better, to be honest. Alright, so we're not going to discard the second Servant, because we'd rather cast it, but I'd rather play Gorging Vulture first, and we drew another Swamp, so we can discard a Swamp, and then we can play Vulture and Barony Vampire this turn. Mill another 4 cards. Maybe we'll find Skeleton or Servant. And we did. We found another Servant, which is nice. This one's going to now make 2 2/2 zombies when it comes into play. So the opponent has a combo here. They can smuggle the Brawler and then attack with it, and it grows after it attacks, and it's unblockable. They've got 1, 2, 3 elementals, so that means they're going to be able to connect for 5. We're still at 17, and the Lich is gaining 1, so it's not super scary, but it's not great for us either. So which one did they make unblockable? I don't even know. Looks like they made the Marauding Raptor unblockable. So I'm going to definitely be blocking Brawler. The only question is with what? I don't think there's really anything for 1 green. We're going to double block. We're going to lose both of our creatures, and they're going to lose Brawler. The only question is which 2 do we want to block with? Seems hard for the Thief to connect. I don't think we need the 1 extra point of power here. They have a 6/5 that's going to be untapped on their turn. So let's keep the Flyer and just double block with these 2 ground creatures. Well worth it to keep our life total up while we try and race. Okay, so we have 6 mana, which means we can still cast Undead Servant for 4. Winged Words only cost 2 because we kept the Flyer. So let's start by Winged Words. I can't words. Then I'm going to attack with both. I don't think we need the Lich back to block. If they want to trade Predator for it, that's a great trade for us. If not, we'll gain another life and loot. Discard the Skeleton. We can always buy it back. And for now, I'll just make my army. And we can always soul salvage back one of the Undead Servants. Now that we're playing against red-green, they kind of have to trade with it again. What else do we have in there? Well, nothing else really worth getting back. Gotta love a grindy zombie deck. This deck would be incredible if we had, like, a Bone Splinters or, like, 2 Bone Splinters. We're really just missing a little bit of removal. We have 2 Murders, a Sleep Paralysis, and a Disfigure. That's not bad, but we want ways to put the Servants in the yard and to deal with big things. So it would be really, really nice to have a Bone Splinters or 2. All right, so we can't block the 2/3 Marauding Raptor, but that's fine. I'll happily double block the 6/5. If they have removal for the blowout, I don't even care. The Servants go into the yard, they're eating a zombie. We're only taking 2 damage this turn. We can soul salvage back the Servant, replay it, and get a bunch more zombies. Feral Invocation wouldn't be my first choice, given it's going to stick around. But there was no real way to play around that, because we would have had to triple block, and then even if they didn't have Invocation, we'd lose all 3. So that wasn't an option. Okay, though, we can reassemble our forces. For now, they've got an 0-3 up, so sending the 2-2 isn't really going to accomplish anything, and we need some blockers. Still going to send the Lich, though, get another loot, and the Vulture. And then if nothing else, I'll just soul salvage specifically the Undead Servant and make the Zombie Horde. Unless this opponent has Flame Sweep, I mean, the Zombie Horde is tough to beat. We can discard Barony Vampire. I can't buy back the Skeleton to discard it this turn, but that is a way to generate card advantage a little later. If we draw a land, we can discard that, because we have a land to play. Okay, so that makes me want to discard Sprite, because now I can use Sorin and Barony Vampire to throw 3 damage at something later. So for this turn, I think we're going to discard Sprite. We definitely want to play another land. That gives us 7. Buy back Servant. Guess I'll just buy back... No, I don't want to buy back 2 Servants. I'll get 1 less zombie that way, and there's still another Servant in there anyway. I'll just buy back a Vampire, knowing that I have Sorin in hand. And then, yeah, Zombie Horde. And you can actually throw your vampires at the opponent, too. 3 damage to any target. So as we get them lower and lower, if we can get them into Sorin range, if we can get them to 3, then we can finish them off that way. Or maybe 6 over 2 turns. As I said, I think this deck is good, nothing special, but it's really fun to play. Looks like they're going to switch gears. No, they're attacking with both. Are they just dead? So let's say I take this. That's 12. I die to Shock, but if they don't have it and I Alpha, they block a 3-2 and they take 9 and they're dead to the Sorin, yeah. Now let's say I chump. Oh, no, I have to double block to chump. Can they do anything to get 1 point here other than Shock? I guess there's the 1 red pump spell too, so there's 2 different 1 mana, 1 red commons that would kill me. I don't particularly think they're holding Shock or Infuriate, but they could be. So do I want to go for lethal? I mean, if I triple block and they have the pump spell, it's pretty bad for me anyway, or a Shock, because then they'll just team me and keep their big thing. If I take it and they block the 3, it's not. They're not going to randomly grow, right? It's 12. I go to 1. The 3/3 blocks the 3/2. They take 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and that puts them to 2. And then I finish them off with Sorin and Vampire. I'm in. Hopefully they don't have anything for the 1 final point. I think they likely don't. Shock would have probably killed Gorging Vulture a while ago. Infuriate doesn't even see that much play. Now we're going to Alpha, go for the win. We're definitely not playing around Shock, the only card that I think is relevant, because if they had that, we're dead. We're at 1. Whatever, this doesn't matter. Think it's right to play the Sorin first, but again, I think the only relevant card is Shock, which clearly, if they had, we're just dead, so it doesn't matter. Sack a Vampire, yes. Sweet game. Okay, so another green deck, although it's not elementals this time. So Aether Gust is definitely coming in. And on the draw, I like the 17, although I don't think we want to anticipate with 7 islands. Maybe that's wrong. Do I have anything that looks good against them? Maybe just all the Blade brands, because, I mean, they have, what? They have the Lavakins, they have the 2 Feral Invocations. Blade brand is pretty good against Feral Invocation, although so is Double Murder and Aether Gust. But yeah, I can always cycle it if I need to find lands. I'm on 9-7. Double Blade brand hands can be kind of ugly, but you're still only most likely going to draw 1. At least in the early game, you'll draw into a second when you have 3 of something. And I do want Blade brands in this matchup. I didn't see Shock or Outrage. I didn't see any instant removal, but I saw double Feral Invocation and some big creatures. So I think it makes sense to have 3 Blade brands in. Against the Elemental rug decks that I played against, their creatures were like smaller and they go wide and they generate card advantage. So I didn't think Blade brand was quite as good. It was still clearly a good card in that matchup, but 2 felt right. But this feels more like a 3 Blade brand matchup to me. All right, let's get started with a Skeleton. Another card that combos really well with Blade brand. I think I just said the word Blade brand like 15 times. Marauding Raptor, the drawback is very real, but the opponent clearly drafted a deck designed around the drawback. They didn't play very many 2 toughness creatures. So I'm just going to go ahead and block in Blade brand here, because I have Audacious Thief and a bunch of removal. So I kind of want to clear a 2-3 anyway, and I don't want the opponent to be able to play their creature spells for less mana. So I think this is correct. Hopefully they don't have instant removal, but honestly, if they do, it's not even that big of a deal. I mean, they're just killing a skeleton. So Uncaged Fury, so it's not a blowout. The Blade brand resolves, I draw a card, and they effectively used Uncaged Fury to keep their creature alive. Everything makes sense. I'm going to put out the Thief over the Lich, because if they don't have 2 on-tap blockers, we know I've got double removal spell, so I'll get to attack and draw cards. Even if they do not attack with the Raptor, play another blocker and leave it up, then they're not attacking me. Okay, well, Chandra's pretty bad for me here. It gets to eat the Thief and they get to connect, but we can still move about our business. 2 damage doesn't kill Lich. I shouldn't have played the land first, not that it matters, since, of course, I have lands to discard in excess. Sadly, you don't get to loot when you hit Planeswalkers with Lich, so Lich is actually not very effective against Planeswalkers, but they can't Chandra it. I've got removal. That's about all I could ask for at this point. So, we're going to kill Wakeroot. The question is with what? If we're going to play Sprite this turn, then we'll murder it. If we're going to play Sleep, if we're not going to play Sprite this turn, then we'll Sleep Paralysis it. The Chandra can kill the Sprite, but I do kind of need to deal with Chandra. I don't want to just leave it out indefinitely. I think the right play now is probably to Sleep Paralysis. No, because I want Wakeroot off the board. I don't want them to win the game if they draw 2 more forests. If this was a different 5/5, I would Sleep Paralysis. But if they draw 2 more forests and I leave that out, they're just going to start making all their lands into 5/5s and kill me. So I think I'm going to murder it, attack Chandra for 1, and then just play Sprite. I don't mind if they -2 and kill the Sprite. Chandra's a good card. I don't really have better options. I kind of want to get it off the board. They won't have a profitable block on the Lich next turn, most likely, because I have Sleep Paralysis for something big they play this turn. So that means the Lich will be able to finish off the Chandra, and then we'll start evaluating what comes next. Still have a lot of great draws in this deck. 3 3 vampires to go with this Sorin. Doubt they have second Marauding Raptor, though it's pretty cool if they do. It is a rare. It's funny because I could Sleep Paralysis Raptor and then it would sit and play with its drawback, but I don't think the opponent's playing many 2-toughness creatures. I saw the one Goblin Smuggler last game, and that was pretty much it. So I do want to get Chandra off the board. I would normally not Sleep Paralysis a random 3-3 here, but I think it's worth it. Now they have almost no profitable play. If they want a chump block to keep Chandra around, cool. If they block an Invocation even, I have Death Touch. I mean, that will keep Chandra around, but I still get to kill their creature. And I'm going to play the land because we have Skeleton, so if the Lich connects further, then we'll be able to just buy back Skeleton and discard it. Okay, so the opponent did have the Invocation, so they were able to trade with the Lich. So they do get to keep Chandra around. I can't say I'm happy about that. But for now, we can buy this back and play it. And I'm going to play Sorin and plus it here. They can't kill Sorin. I'll chump Spider with Skeleton. I've got plenty of mana to buy it back. If they Chandra'd the Skeleton, they could only hit the Sorin for 3 and Chandra would be gone, so I would be ecstatic. A Vampire would be a pretty nice play, draw this turn, since Sorin can throw at any target. If they plus Chandra to 3, which is what they'll most likely do, and just pass the turn, or attack and have me chump either way, if I draw a Vampire, I can then throw it at Chandra. Oh wow, another Pattern Matcher to copy the Spider. So there's the Vampire. So I think I want to get Chandra off the board, although I'm not sure now. I can pump the Blood Burglar into a 3-3, which means they can't Chandra it. Maybe that's right, because they do have too much going on, I think. And I mean, let's see. Let's say they have 6 out, so if they -2 and hit Skeleton, then they attack out Sorin. That's pretty bad for me. If I plus Sorin to 6 here, and I hit the Chandra, I've got the Skeleton, I can chump. Sorin goes to 3, but they're playing another 3-5 now. They just drew all of this, so I'm probably not going to be able to protect Sorin long-term that way. Whereas if I grow this Burglar to a 4-4, then it's a good blocker. So yeah, I think I'm not worried about protecting Sorin so much as I am growing my Blood Burglar here now. Because I can keep growing that Burglar. Chandra's not killing it, and it shouldn't die in combat here. If they minus Chandra to hit Skeleton and attack Sorin with both, and I let Sorin go, they can play that Spider. Then I can attack Chandra. Well, no, I won't have Death Touch anymore. So now what do I have to do? I have to trade Blood Burglar for Pattern Matcher. And then I at least keep Sorin floating around for a few more turns. Maybe that was wrong. Maybe I should have thrown the Blood Burglar at Chandra. It's close. I mean, this wasn't, like, bad for me. It got them to minus Chandra on Skeleton. Keep Chandra in check for a while. And then I guess I make this trade. I know I can't really protect Sorin anyway, but they have a 2-4 that's blanking the 3-3. So I think I'd rather make them keep attacking Sorin. And I do have 2 more Vampires and Soul Salvage. With the Lich already in the graveyard, I'm definitely going to keep playing lands, I think. I mean, I guess I could hold 1 theoretically, but you never know how many I'm going to use in any one turn. Guess if I Soul Salvage the Lich, I might want to land in hand. Again, if nothing else, this buys me time. I do have a pretty small deck with 4 Undead Servants to get going. This game is definitely looking rough, but hopefully they'll start drawing lands and I'll start drawing spells. So we can't save Sorin. Time to let it go. Winged Word's always a nice draw in the mid-game. There are those servants. Get the first one out. And we haven't used Soul Salvage yet, I don't think. So there's 2 more servants and Soul Salvage to get going. This is going to be a tough game to win from this far behind, but maybe it's still possible. Or maybe I'm just dead. Let's do some math. 5, 10, 17, 20. Well, I'm definitely not dead because they have 20 and I have 4 toughness. I can't kill anything except Sedge Scorpion, which is the creature I need to kill the least. I guess it's better to kill things than not, and all their creatures have trample. So, Undead Servant, and I guess I absorb 2 points of trample. I almost want the Undead Servant to die this turn. It's going to be replaced by an extra 2/2. I think I'm dead. I'm going to make them do it. They can minus Chandra to hit the skeleton, and then attack with all 3 creatures, all of which will have 3 power exactly, and that'll lethal me. But they may not see it, so I'm going to make them do that. Or they could minus and hit the 2/2 zombie, or 3/2, or whatever, and attack with all 3. So they get me by Xaxes here. Alright, game 3. So, Chandra was really good against me, and it will be, because my creatures, a lot of which have 2 toughness. They've got double Mammoth Spider, double Pattern Matcher. We're going to be on the play. I think Blade Brands are good. Befuddle might be alright against them on the play, but that's probably too greedy. Do I want to go back to 17 lands? Kind of. Boreal isn't the best against the spiders, but it is good with the 3 Blade Brands. And it can attack Chandra. Do I have any 2 toughness creatures that are really bad against Chandra that I want to take out? Just my vampires. Nah. I think we just got to run this. Hope for the best. This deck's pretty close between 16 and 17. Anyway, I mean, you see we don't really have expensive cards. I think with 3 Blade Brands to cycle, 16 is acceptable. The thing I'm most worried about is that if I don't play a 2 and they don't play a 2, I might not be able to cycle it. But I think it's too powerful a card in the mid-game against them. They've got those Feral Invocations, plus just 3/5s, which are pretty vulnerable to it, and big creatures in general. Definitely a play for stack. Looks like a pretty good hand. Still need to draw Swamp, but in the meantime, we have Sprite and Aether Gust to use. Now we really need to draw Swamp. Murder's very good in this matchup, though. They're like a big creature Feral Invocation deck. Cool. So now we have a decision to make. With this much removal, I'm really not sure what I should do. I think I don't want to murder the Leafkin, but I probably want to Aether Gust it on their turn after they draw. Because by the time they redraw it, if they choose to top it and replay it, it'll probably be pretty near useless. So I think the right play here, I have to set a stop for that. Stop on the opponent's draw step. Because the opponent gets to choose whether to top or bottom, whatever you target. And mana producers, mana rampers like Druid are really powerful on turn 2, but they're not that useful if you're going to draw them and play them on turn 4 or 5. So they may just choose to bottom it, but that's fine. Then I'm effectively killing it. And I don't want to let them have ramp this early. So what I'm going to do is pass to draw. Now we're in their draw step, but we're not in their main phase, so they can't use it for mana to play a creature. And then I'm going to put Leafkin Druid back on top or bottom, their choice. Tapped it for mana, but unless I messed up what phase we're in, they can only use it for instance right now. It shouldn't be their main phase. Nope, it's their draw step, so now the mana goes away. They did have another third land and a mana ramp creature, so that wasn't super effective. But I'm still working with double murder, so I think I'll sleep paralysis the ramper still. Slow them down. They chose to top it, so I have to assume they can't have too many lands. Well, that worked out pretty poorly for me. Maybe I should have played Servant so that I could have pressured Chandra better. I didn't think they were going to have land 4 since they chose to top it, but now I got punished pretty bad. Might lose this game to Chandra too. Remember, they choose top or bottom, so it's not like Aether Gust on Chandra was going to be that effective. They would just put it on top. So the Aether Gust turn was definitely right. But last turn, maybe I should have played the Servant to have 2 creatures out and instead of Sleep Paralysis on Scuttlemutt. But because they put the Leafkin on top and not the bottom, I wasn't really expecting them to just, like, draw it and have land 4. I mean, they already had land 3 and Scuttlemutt, and they still chose to top an 0-3 that adds mana. But back is definitely to the wall now. Certainly no reason to kill the Leafkin now, so now we play Barony Vampire. They can't kill it with Chandra this turn. Hopefully they can only play 1 creature. Even if they have Leafkin up, if they play like a Mammoth Spider, that's not that bad for me. I can murder the creature they play, and then they either have to chump block the Barony Vampire, or it takes out Chandra. If they have 2 creatures to play here that can block the Vampire, I'm almost completely out of it. And the pump will go away by my turn. So yeah, they hold the Leafkin up to have the chump, but it doesn't have 2 power anymore, so we're definitely murdering the Brawler. Draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell, which I have, and you and your permanents gain hexproof. Well, that's bad for me. So I could attack and Blade Brand when they block with Brawler, but then the Chandra will live and my Vampire will die. This turn, if they want to kill the Vampire, they have to bin the Chandra. So they're probably going to just plus the Chandra, or if they minus to kill the Vampire, okay, the Chandra's gone. So I just kind of have to hope they're not really holding anything now, I think. That should pretty much have won them the game. If they didn't have that, I was okay. Then they would have had to chump with the Druid. The Chandra would be on 2. They could trade it for the Vampire or plus it to 3, play another blocker, and then I could have murdered that and 8 Chandra. So I had a pretty reasonable path to victory. But now, again, my back is super to the wall. And maybe I can win with the Zombie Horde or something, who knows. But my chances are looking pretty bad. Well, that does me a ton of damage. Doesn't actually lethal me, though. And now I can kill Chandra. So I'm going to need things to play, though. So I should cycle this Blade Brand for sure. Because I'm really hoping to find a land and a cheap creature or something like that. Because I can murder the Brawler and attack out Chandra. But then they attack me for 4 with this Brawler right now. So I really needed to find like a 3-drop, a 2-drop, or a removal. Since I drew 2 lands, I think I'm just dead. I mean, I am just dead. So I'll just make the play anyway. But yeah, if they would have If I would have just drawn a 3-drop here, I would have been potentially okay. So that was a pretty good hand to lose with. I found the swamp for the murders and all of that. I think I probably punted. Opponent's deck's pretty nice. Chandra, all these high toughness creatures. I really like Brawler and Leafkin and pretty much everything they played. So, a little bit disappointing 2-2. I think my deck was good, nothing special. I think it would have been really good if I had a couple Bone Splinters, but I was missing that. I really think Grindy Black is awesome. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's going to be a new one posted every week. So come back and look for the next one. I'll be tweeting about it. So if you want to know when videos are going to be up and coming out, you can always check my Twitter, which is BenS_MTG, same as my YouTube channel and my Twitch account, where I stream live drafts on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.